This Faith and Finance podcast is underwritten in part by Movement Mortgage. Movement provides residential home loans in all 50 states. Founded in 2008, amidst one of the biggest financial meltdowns in American history, Movement set forth on a mission to create a movement of change in their industry, in corporate cultures, and in communities. First, they pioneered a unique approach to home loans centered around helping home buyers quickly and easily. Then they created a model so that a portion of their profit creates a long-term positive impact in communities, both close to home and around the globe, through the Movement Foundation and Movement Schools. It all comes back to their mission to love and value people. Learn more at movement.com/faith. Movement Mortgage, LLC supports equal housing opportunity. NMLS number 39179. For licensing information, please visit nmlsconsumeraccess.org.
Is it the best of times or the worst of times? Well, it all depends on if you're trying to buy or sell a house. Hi, I'm Rob West. It's really a matter of perspective. Home values remain sky high and are likely to continue rising in the foreseeable future. How you view that depends on which side of the transaction you're on. I'll talk about it today, and then it's on to your calls at 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. This is Faith and Finance, biblical wisdom for your financial decisions. Okay, it may be the worst of times if you're a first-time home buyer. Home values have never been higher thanks to the continued high cost of building materials, inflation, and low inventory. Coupled with mortgage rates around 7%, no question buying your first home is an uphill battle. It's quite different if you're moving up, that is, selling a starter home and buying one that fits your current needs. True, your dream house is more expensive these days, but so is the house you're selling, and that takes much of the sting out of those high home values. Still, higher interest rates, around 7% for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, have a lot of prospective home sellers sitting on the sidelines waiting for rates to go down. That, in turn, means fewer homes on the market, which also drives up prices. Now, if you're downsizing, it's really the best of times. You can sell a larger, more expensive home and have a sizable nest egg, or if you still have a mortgage, pay that off and be mortgage-free in your new, smaller home. These factors have always affected the housing market, but now they're exaggerated with inflation and ever-rising prices. The latest data shows that home values rose 6.5% in the past year, and analysts think those increases will continue overall, but the rate of increase will begin to slow. Of course, they've been saying that for a while now, and home prices have continued to rise. So what can you do about it if you're trying to buy a home? Well, first, get all three of your credit reports from Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. You can do that for free at annualcreditreport.com. Look them over carefully and dispute any erroneous items. You want to boost your credit score to get the lowest possible interest rate when you apply for a mortgage. Next, meet with a mortgage loan officer. That person can be a wealth of information about the loan application and approval process. You don't necessarily have to provide your personal financial information during your first visit. You can also ask about any available programs for first-time home buyers. At some point, you'll have to give your personal information to a loan officer to review your debt-to-income ratio. That will determine how much you can borrow. Do not borrow as much as the lender says you can afford. That will usually be too high, making it difficult to stay on budget. I would keep your payments to 25% of your take-home pay. Next, put together as big a down payment as you can. If you can put down 20%, you won't have to pay for private mortgage insurance, which runs around 1% of the loan amount annually. You should also keep at least a few $1,000s back because there will always be things you need to fix or add when you move into a new house. You don't want to use credit cards for that. Now it's time to get pre-approved for your loan. Here, you can shop around a bit, looking not only for the best interest rate, but also for the best company to handle your mortgage. Would you like to help make the world a better place and expand God's kingdom just by paying your mortgage? You can do that when you work with Movement Mortgage, an underwriter of this program. Movement Mortgage is a Christian mortgage company founded during the 2008 housing crisis. Its sole purpose is to help homebuyers and have a positive impact in communities within the U.S. and around the world. Movement customers get competitive rates and a chance to participate in a global movement of change. They've actually donated $377 million to projects that help local communities. Movement Mortgage also has locations in all 50 states, and you can learn more at movement.com/faith. Now that you've got your mortgage nailed down, make a list of features you need in your new home and then connect with a knowledgeable real estate agent who can help you find houses that will meet your needs. But with today's high prices, make your list of must-haves as short as possible. It's a very strong seller's market, so buyers have to be flexible. Oh, one last tip. If you can wait until winter to make an offer, do it. The field of potential buyers typically shrinks during the cold weather months, and you may have less competition then. Okay, so that's the state of the housing market today and a few tips for surviving it. We hope that helps you. All right, we're going to take your calls next. The number is 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000, and you can call that 24/7. This is Faith and Finance, biblical wisdom for your financial decisions. I hope you don't go anywhere because we've got a lot more straight ahead. Stick around.
We're grateful for support from Movement Mortgage, who provides residential home loans in all 50 states. Guided by a mission to love and value people and a goal to redefine the mortgage process, Movement seeks to help others achieve their financial goals. You can find out more at movement.com/faith. Movement Mortgage LLC supports equal housing opportunity, NMLS number 39179. For licensing information, please visit nmlsconsumeraccess.org.
Are you a financial advisor or CPA seeking to build your practice on biblical wisdom? Not only does the Certified Kingdom Advisor education provide you with deep biblical insights, the CKA designation sets you apart. Each year, almost 50,000 people search for a Christian financial advisor. Join our community and share your expertise with clients looking for someone who shares their faith and values. Find more information at kingdomadvisors.com/getcertified.
Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance. Well, it's time to take your calls and questions today. The number 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. We've got lines open, and we'd love to hear from you today. As we begin to dive in here in just a moment, we'd love for you to know our desire is to be an encouragement to you, to take you into God's Word, help you process those practical decisions and choices you make every day in your financial life in light of God's truth. So let's do that now. We're going to begin in Lancaster, PA, and welcome Jane to the broadcast. Go right ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. I'm an old-timer. I've appreciated your program since the days of Larry Burkett.
Wow, that's great.
It's really a blessing, and I've learned a lot. But my question today has to do with tithing. I have a long-term type investment comprised of stocks and bonds, and sometimes in a year they may show a slight increase over the principal, but on other years there's a loss in the principal. Now, I really didn't count on giving a tithe until I totally cash out that holding, but now I am thinking about cashing out a portion of it because I have some home repairs coming up. And so, of course, my question is, how do I determine my tithe when I'm not cashing out the whole thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, Jane, is this in a taxable account or is it in a retirement account, pre-tax?
No, it's a taxable account.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so whenever you liquidate a position, whether it's a portion of a holding or the entire holding, you will generate a long-term or a short-term capital gain or capital loss. And that capital gain or loss for tax purposes is essentially your increase or your decrease in the case of a loss. And so what you would be able to do is say over a period of time, and it might be most effective to do this at tax time and look at the prior 12 months, is you'd take all of the realized gains and losses for the year, those positions that you sold, not the gains where you held on to the stock because that might, turn the corner and head back down. But those positions where you've sold, and you'd total up all the gains, you'd total up all the losses, you'd subtract them from one another. And for that period of time, in my example, 12 months, and you could do this on a shorter period if you wanted to, you would come up with the net gain or loss for that period, and then you'd take a tenth of that and make that your tithe. And so it really comes down to what is my increase over a period of time, and it can only be based on realized increases because, again, if it's unrealized, that means you still hold the investment and you don't know whether or not you will ultimately have a gain or a loss until it's sold. But does that make sense to you?
Well, it does. So let me just see if I'm totally understanding what you're saying. So you're saying, for example, if I take out the amount of money I need to take out in a year, then at the end of the year, I'll know what the gain or loss might be and go from there?
You would need to determine that for tax purposes. It's really not as much, Jane, about how much you took out. Because remember, you might put in 100,000 and you could take 20,000 out. Well, you don't have an increase at that point. If the value is what's remaining in the account is 80,000, you've just taken money and moved it around. So really the increase comes down to you making an investment in the case of stocks and that investment growing and then you selling it and realizing a profit or a gain. And so what you would have to do is not look at the total amount of withdrawals for that period of time. You would have to look at each individual holding that you sold and say, what was my cost basis? What did I buy it for? And then you would factor in what you sold it for. So you take your selling price of each individual investment minus your purchase price. And then you determine on the number of shares that I sold, did I have a gain or a loss? And if you had multiple investments that you sold during the year, some of them you may have sold at a profit, others you may have sold at a loss. And so you'd have to determine across all of the sales for the years, not the withdrawals, but the sales, did I have a net profit or a loss? And then that would be the amount that would help you determine what your tithe would be.
Okay, it just needs a little bit of work on my end.
It does, and it's work you're going to have to do anyway for tax purposes, Jane, because anytime you sell an investment at a profit, the IRS is going to want, assuming you are in the right tax bracket where there is a capital gain, they're going to want to know what was the cost basis and what'd you sell it for, and the difference is either a gain or a loss, and it may or may not be taxable. So you're going to need to go through that exercise to determine for each of those sales, did I sell it at a profit or a loss? And then you can total them all up for the year and determine whether you actually came out ahead. And if you did, not the amount you took out, but the gain is what would be used to determine the tithe.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I think I'm understanding what you're saying. Yeah. So, okay.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
You are so welcome, and I appreciate you mentioning the late Larry Burkett. Lancaster has always been a wonderful market, going all the way back to Money Matters when Larry was on the air. Just so many folks, and Larry would visit that part of the country often and speak in churches, and he was always just so fond of that part of the world. Now, do I see here that you have a second question?
Well, I did, if you have time for it.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
What it has to do with picking an online bank. I've been very interested in an online savings type bank, and I've explored it, as you said, bankrate.com. But I guess what I'm wondering is, how do I know what the rating of that particular bank is?
Yeah.
Because I have noticed that some of the ones that really pay the top rates have only been around less than a year.
Yeah, very good. Well, here's what I would say. As long as they have at least a 4.5-star rating from Bankrate, and that's an independent review, you'll see that for everyone listed at bankrate.com, 4.5 to 5 stars, then I would feel very comfortable. And ultimately, what you're looking for is that FDIC insurance. But with FDIC insurance and a 4.5 or 5-star rating, you should be in good shape. Quickly to South Florida. Hi, Yvette. How can I help?
Yes, I was calling because I want to diversify in precious metals, and I have an IRA now. I want to know if I should roll it over to have them to put precious metals in my IRA, or should I have it at home where I can get precious metals? I really want it silver rather than gold because gold is kind of expensive.
Okay, yeah. Here's the way I think about that. I would think in terms of your total investable assets, you might want a 5% forever allocation that you actually take possession of the physical metal. So in your case, silver, keep that at home in a safe, fireproof safe, and then go another 5% in your IRA. But you can buy that through one of the tracker ETFs without actually buying the physical metal. But I wouldn't go over 10% total. I hope that helps. Thanks for calling. Before we head to the break, let me remind you, if you listen to this program regularly, you're a part of the Faith and Finance family, we'd like to invite you to become a Faith Fi partner. These folks are committed to living out biblical stewardship principles in their lives and share a desire to see others be good and faithful stewards as well. A gift of $35 a month or more allows you to become a Faith Fi partner, where you'll receive exclusive quarterly ministry updates, an early release copy of each of our studies, and much more. Just go to faithfi.com and click Give. That's faithfi.com and click Give. Stick around.
Are you looking for a financial professional who aligns with your biblical values? Certified Kingdom Advisors are trusted financial, legal, or accounting professionals who have completed a rigorous certification program to ensure they provide biblically wise financial advice as part of their practice. You can find a local CKA professional in your area by going to faithfi.com and clicking Find a CKA.
We are grateful for support from Sound Mind Investing in the Faith and Finance program. If you have money in a retirement account or just a general investing account, you know the stock market can sometimes seem like a roller coaster. But it is possible to enjoy both profit and peace of mind in investing, no matter what's happening in the market. You can see a short video webinar on that topic at soundmindinvesting.org. Since 1990, Sound Mind Investing has sought to offer financial wisdom for living well. soundmindinvesting.org.
Hey, great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance. We've got a couple of lines open, 800-525-7000 for your financial questions, 800-525-7000. Let's go out to Wyoming. Hi, Jim. How can I help?
I was curious. I was looking at Proverbs and Psalms and Ezekiel talking about, like Psalms 15 says, he who does not put out his money at interest, nor does he take a bribe against the innocent. It talks in the Old Testament about getting interest off of your money, and it seems to say that it's kind of an evil thing to do. As a retired person of 68, I've been retired since I was 65. I got let go from the airline because that's how old you have to retire at as a pilot. And I was curious, is it evil to make interest off your money? Because that's how I make my living.
Yeah. And you're talking about you're charging interest to people you're holding loans or something?
No, it's in my IRA.
Oh, okay. But what are you doing with it? That you're just investing it in CDs or something? Or what's the interest you're describing?
Well, my advisor's been making about 15% in the current market, which has been very nice.
Yeah.
He works for a financial institution. He's my advisor. He's a Kingdom advisor.
Cool.
And he goes through the investments and makes sure they're biblically sound, and he makes sure that we're not supporting something wicked. And I was just curious, as he makes interest off my IRA, is that an evil thing to do, even though it's just primarily investment? And it's in bonds, it's in different stocks and different various avenues of investment.
Yeah, very good. No, I'm following you now, Jim. No, I don't think that's an apples to apples comparison. So the Old Testament condemned charging interest on loans to the poor and within the Jewish community. And so, basically we redefine that today as prohibitions on lending at excessive interest rates. So this would be you lending money to someone at an excessive interest rate that would not be usual and customary. Now, today, the usury laws are gone, and it's basically been redefined as truth in lending, which basically says that as long as you disclose it, you can charge whatever you want. Now, I would still apply that principle as a Christ follower, that I wouldn't want to charge an exorbitant amount and take advantage of or place a hardship on someone that I was lending money to. And so I think that's the application here. And then there is, we see in Scripture as well a discussion that kind of stems from this about charging interest to a brother. But you're not lending money. You're actually taking what God has entrusted to you and you're deploying it by investing it in companies with real sales and earnings. You're applying a faith-based filter to that to make sure that those companies you're investing in, whether it's through equity positions, stocks, or debt positions, bonds, you're making sure those companies are aligned with your values, which is great. I love that. But I wouldn't say that in any way applies to these passages that you mentioned around usury and charging interest to someone in a way that's taking advantage of them. Does that make sense?
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I was pretty sure that was going to be the answer, but I just wanted to verify that because of your expertise and wisdom, because some people have pointed to that and said that is unbiblical to make interest off your money. And I kind of figured that sound wisdom says that's what you do, because if you hoard, you're not being biblical. And if you lend your money out at a small, reasonable interest, then that makes biblical sense.
Yeah, I don't think, you would have to be taking advantage of someone or, something like that in order to get anywhere close to what we're reading about there, I think, in the Old Testament. And to your point, Jesus in Matthew 25 has a servant condemned for not placing money with bankers to earn interest. And so I think, that's all the reason we need, or example we need, to say part of being a good and faithful steward is to take what God has entrusted to us. And if I'm not using it to provide or to give or even to enjoy, which we see in 1 Timothy, we're to put it to work. And, that just is part of wise stewardship, and putting that to work in a way that's God-honoring, that allows for human flourishing, because when you're investing in companies, those companies are providing a real benefit, a good or a service to mankind. And I think that's part of we see in the creation account, that we were created to be fruitful and multiply. We were created to be workers before the fall of man, which means we take God's creation, which has embedded in it this potential, like a seed that when planted and tended to can yield a harvest, and with sand that with ingenuity given by God can become semiconductors. We're to take God's creation and improve it and order it, and that's just a part of the admonition that was given to us by Creator God. So I think you're on the right track here, Jim, but I appreciate you asking the question. Let's go to North Carolina. Hi, Sandy. How can I help?
Yes, I just wondered if an irrevocable trust is taxable after death, or does it go back to a will that was already made?
Yeah, no. So the irrevocable trust is one that cannot be changed, where you no longer control those assets. Perhaps you're thinking about a revocable trust, or is it in fact an irrevocable?
It's an irrevocable.
Okay. So, there is really no estate tax, at least right now, until you get above $13 million. And so, you really don't have to worry about that in terms of the overall estate. you could check with your estate attorney just on the details of your situation, but it's likely that you wouldn't have, except for a pretty massive estate, although that's going to sunset in 2025 with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and that's going to drop down to a $5 million estate. But even then, for most folks, you don't have any issue there. It doesn't return to a will, though. The assets in the irrevocable trust will avoid probate and then pass directly to the named beneficiaries. And then it depends on whether it's what's called a grantor trust or a non-grantor trust. Do you know which it is?
I don't know which one,
okay.
No.
Okay, all right. So, assets transferred to an irrevocable trust are generally subject to gift tax. Again, that's going to be that $13 million lifetime amount. What I might do is contact the estate planning attorney, Sandy, that drafted it and find out what type of irrevocable trust it is. And then, typically if it's a grantor's trust, the grantor, during the grantor's lifetime, they would just be responsible for paying income taxes on the trust's income. And then for a non-grantor trust, the trust itself is taxed on any retained income. But the amount being transferred at death generally is not taxed again unless it goes above what is today that $13 million exemption for the estate. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Sandy. Thanks for your call. May the Lord bless you. Folks, that's going to do it for us today. We covered a lot of ground. Thank you for calling and for inviting us into your stories. And we always love for the opportunity to be alongside you. Thanks to my team today, Taylor, Devin, and Robert. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Faith and Finance is provided by FaithFi and listeners like you.